it's not always going to go the way we planned. And so I want to build a business that when that happens, it doesn't all fall on me. And therefore running my business becomes some massive burden instead of a joy. And I feel that way about raising kids too. Like our kids can often feel burdensome, not because they mean to, but because they're human beings that we have to make sure live. And so how can we create a support system where like everything can kind of be accounted for so that we feel joy even when things don't go the way we planned?
What would the world look like if people felt like they mattered? Welcome to the Lead with Love podcast, exploring what it means to lead with love in business and life. I'm your host, Jada Selner, and in this show, I'll share meaningful conversations to help you, the creative, the entrepreneur, the world changer, reach more people, go after your dreams, and serve your community with love. I appreciate you joining me. Now, let's get cozy and start today's episode. If you've ever felt guilty about being a mom and building a business, then this episode of the Lead with Love podcast is for you. We talk about getting clear on your priorities, the relationship between resilience and failure, and how to grow a sustainable community online. In today's conversation, I get cozy with Dana Malstaff. Dana is the CEO and founder of Boss Mom. She is a mother, author, speaker, business strategist, and podcaster. And she launched the Boss Mom brand with her first book, Boss Mom, The Ultimate Guide to Raising a Business and Nurturing Your Family Like a Pro, and has turned the brand into an international movement. Now, I've had the honor to be on the Boss Mom podcast, so I will make sure to link to that in the show notes. And just know you can always find show notes for this podcast over at jadaselner.com/podcast. Now, what's really cool about Dana is she has over 20,000 students in various courses and an organically grown Facebook group of over 40,000 members that helps women all over the world raise their businesses and their babies at the same time. She's totally speaking my business love language. And Dana believes that we need to show our children that doing what we love can be financially viable too. And I'm a huge advocate for that because that is exactly the message that I personally grew up with. One of the gifts that my father left with me was to do what you love and to marry someone who does work that they love as well. And I know not every family speaks this, but I truly do believe that it is possible. So if you have not heard from anyone in your family, your partnership, I just want to be that reminder. And this conversation is a reminder that you can do work that you love and make a profit and make a difference. So let's get cozy with Dana. Hey, Dana Banana.
Hi. I know. People think it's strange I tell people that, like even at big conferences, but I like it. My cousin actually had convinced me until I was probably 8 or so that my middle name was Banana, which is not the case.
What is your middle name?
It is Lee. So Dana Lee Parker is my maiden name, which sounds like I'm a country singer.
I love it. I love it. I love it. My middle name is Uriah. And first name Jada. And again, I get the same thing where it's like, is it Jada or is it Jada? Like, I'm always like, you have a 50-50 chance. I used to not correct people. Do you correct people?
It depends. And I really don't notice. I don't link my identity to the pronunciation of my name. So I don't feel like if someone pronounces it wrong, it's somehow sung ping to like me being who I am. So it doesn't bother me. I find it bothers my friends way more than it bothers me.
Right. I think, I wouldn't say it because I didn't want people to feel bad in the moment that they got it wrong. But then it would be like a year later and you're like, you've been letting me call you Jada all these years.
Yes. Yeah. I find in interviews, I always tell people at the beginning, it's Dana, because I don't want them to feel like we've just recorded a whole thing and they've pronounced my name wrong and I wouldn't have even noticed. So I have to like make a note to myself that says, remind them how to pronounce your name, because not everybody asks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's super helpful. I've even had people send me little audios of like, can you just send me a quick audio? Because I just want to get it right. Because it's, yeah. So that's awesome. And I used to grow up with Jada the butt. I didn't love it when I was a kid. And I was like, I don't like my name. But now I love my name. Like that I love the pronunciation, that it's not typical. But, it takes some time to grow into all the things that are parts of representing who you are in the world.
Very true. Very true.
And the way that we met was actually through a mutual friend, Christina Nicholson, introed us, and I got to be a guest on your podcast where we talked about business, homeschooling. So if anyone's wanting to listen, definitely check out Boss Mom Podcast. And I even saw that you have Boss Dad Podcast.
We do. It's much younger, but I'm a holistic kind of person. And, I think that moms have our own challenges with having businesses and having babies. And what I love about your podcast is love is the hard part, is we feel like our heart can only contain a certain amount, and really helping women see that that's not the case and that we can love multiple things. And dads, I have found over the years, deal with their own set of things and they don't really have an outlet. Women have all of these communities and they're everywhere and they, the women get together and they talk, and that doesn't really happen in the same way in the circles of men. And I was seeing this of guys who had big communities. And so we launched the Boss Dad podcast so that I would get an opportunity. We only have one every other week. So there's only 2 a month that come out because it's not the major part of my brand. It's just something that I'm very passionate about. And being able to, Pat Flynn and Mike Stelzner, who, runs Social Media Marketing World, and Mark Schaefer and Jay Bear and all these really big, powerful brands and men behind their brand, and be able to share their stories. And the interesting part is I've only had like 30 men on that show so far, and 7 of them have cried. And I've had almost 400 episodes of the Boss Mom podcast, and we've had like 1 woman cry, because we all have outlets for that. And I've just realized these men do not have an outlet. And I think it's important that the moms also hear these stories, because I think we band together and we think, oh, we're the moms, we have all of this, it all falls on us. And I don't think we realize how much men also worry about children and supporting and protecting and all those things. So I think having a holistic view of our lives and our stories helps everybody to deal with, interact, and react to the things in our lives better.
I love that so much. And I think that there is a movement that is quietly brewing for men and vulnerability and community and connection, because it hasn't been that way in the past. And I love that you're creating this conversation to be heard. My husband, he runs his own children's music business and those pieces, and he's starting to go to men's groups, and there's just and he wants to be around other dads. Like it's a different path when you choose to parent and to have children and to run a business and to support a woman who's running a business. Like there's so many intricate pieces that lie within that decision. So I love that you're doing that. And I am definitely going to go check out some of those podcasts. And I know our mutual friend and book coach, Asul, is on there as well. So I definitely want to check that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's lovely.
Yes. So I definitely want to talk about books in a bit, but I first want to just ask you, what does leading with love mean to you? And how do you put love into practice in your business?
Yeah, well, when people ask me what my favorite business book is, I tell them it's The 5 Love Languages. And then they give me that weird look like, that's not a business book, right? And then I look at them and I said, is it? Or is it the best business book that ever was? And I think because when I think about leading with love, I think about leading with understanding people more. the more that I can understand how you as a human being feel valued, and understand that you and the person right next to you may feel valued in very different ways, then I can start to do things in my life for myself and for other people that help really feed that love language. Because ultimately, I think we all just want to feel valued in the world. I think love is a lot about giving of ourselves and about feeling valued. And I think when we feel valued, then we have more space and more love to give, which is really important. And, so when I think about leading with love, I think about how can I look at those around me in my community, in my family, my friends, and really lead with that understanding of how they feel valued.
And I love the 5 Love Languages book. My number 1 is quality time. And there are 5 total, right? It's quality time, acts of service, physical touch, receiving gifts, and words of affirmation.
Yep.
Which one is yours?
Oh, my primary one is physical touch. So I'm a huggy person. I have joked at one of my larger events that I said, it takes 7 to 10 touch points, for people from a branding perspective, for people to really internalize what it is you're trying to get them to do or experience. And I said, so expect me to hug you, shake your hand, touch your shoulder 10 times over this weekend, because I think physical touch it's something that for me, I can feel like I feel that value and that love. So I'm a huge hugger. And I had people at the end of the event, they'd come up to me, they'd be like, Dana, you've only, touched me 3 times. So could we have like a 7-second hug? And I'm like, yes, we can. Yes, we can. And, so I'm real huggy with my kids, with my friends. When I'm talking to somebody, I usually have my hand on their shoulder. If I'm shaking a hand, I'm using both hands. I'm a very physical person. And then words of affirmation are my second one. So I do need some element of my life where people affirm that I'm doing a good job. I love having Boss Mom because at least once a day now, it used to be maybe once a week, but once a day now, somebody sends me an email. And one of the missions in my business, one of the things that's very important to me that has to happen every year is that I have to have an appreciation loop. So I need someone at least once a week telling me the phrase, this is exactly what I needed today. That is like in our vision of my business is that someone at least once a day or once a week, now it's once a day, says, this is exactly what I needed today. And what's crazy is that's the exact phrasing people use in some of the stuff that we put out, which is really cool. So I need that. I don't care about gifts. I really don't care if I ever get anything. I grew up with like a very bohemian family that moved around a lot. So stuff doesn't matter to me. I love time with people, but only if it's in service of helping each other. Like I don't really care about just hanging out as much with people. I could see somebody once a month that's a good friend. And as long as when we talk to each other, it's deep connected conversation where we're really, truly there with each other, that's enough for me. So yeah, it's really, really those top 2 are the big ones. And honestly, like I could come home and nobody could ever clean the house and I wouldn't care. Like we could hire the whole thing out. And those acts of service don't matter to me either. So it's really interesting to see what people care about.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And also Gary Chapman, the author of that book, also wrote the 5 languages of work appreciation or something something in that terms. But I love that you just use the original book of like, this is the piece to get clear on how people want to feel loved and valued and appreciated and acknowledged. And I talk about like the ABCs of love of like, we want to be acknowledged. We want to feel a sense of belonging and we want connection. Like we crave connection. And you mentioned the bohemian family and traveling around. I think we have that similar where we moved around. I never went to the same school for more than 2 years.
Yep.
Can you tell me a little bit how that moving around has shaped the type of business owner that you are?
Yeah. Well, and I think it's shaped a lot of who I am and how I interact with people. I think one of the things that it gave me that is so incredibly useful from a business perspective is resilience. So when I look at change, I don't look at change and I'm not scared by it. Let's say change to me was such an inevitable part of my life. And my parents made a large effort to make it change fun, to make it something that we were curious about, something that was adventurous and exciting. And so I grew to just see moving and change in different cities as more of an exploration than some kind of violation of what I had and what I was capable of. And because of that, that resilience has allowed me, I feel like, to fail a lot in business and not see it as failure, but see it as part of the adventure, part of the change. I think it has allowed me to move through relationships that change because, different relationships have different dynamics, and not all relationships stay together or stay the same, from clients and friends and, family and romance and all of those things. And so I understand the ebb and flow of relationships, I think, better because I've moved through them. I don't necessarily have a ton of friends from when I was, 5. I have a lot of friends that are from very different parts of my life. And one of the things that I really love about moving around is the fact that I have a lot of friends from different parts of my life that serve different purposes. And so I don't look at, like in our second Boss Mom book, I talk about the circles of understanding. I don't look at somebody I've known forever and say, that's my forever friend. I look at the friend that was there for me at this particular time in my life and the friend that was here at this particular time in my life. And they have a circle of understanding so that I can go to them at those particular times or for those particular stories or this particular kind of connection. And I think it's really helped me see that relationships serve purposes in different ways. And it's not always that I have to try and have my mom be the end all be all for everything, including business, when she has no idea how to support me in that way. I have my circles of understanding. And because I moved around a lot, I was forced to have friends at different times in my life for different situations. And I realized I don't have to lose those friends in order to gain new friends for different particular parts of my life as my life changes. And therefore, instead of always being around people that, no longer fit with what my goals are or no longer fit with the conversations I want to have or the person I want to be, I don't beat myself up about still being connected to those people, but also gaining friends that really do understand where I'm at and what I'm doing, which is why Boss Mom in some way was born, because when we become moms and when we start to have businesses, we're not always surrounded by women who are doing the same things we're doing. And we try to almost force these friendships to bear the burden of relating to us in a way that it's not their fault. They're lovely people. They don't want the same things we want. And so they can't relate. And then we feel bad because we're not doing the same things they're doing. And we need to be able to feel okay with going out and finding other people and adding to our toolbox of, awesome relationships to help us in the areas when we're there. That was a very long answer for your one question.
I love it. One thing that I'm curious about, because you mentioned change fun, could you take me to a moment when your parents presented the change is coming, a move is coming? How did they create that invitation to be fun and kind of invoke that curiosity and exploration?
Oh, yeah. I have a great example. I was living in LA with my mom. And my brother wasn't living with us at the time. My mom had rekindled a relationship with her high school sweetheart. And his name is Ilo, and they were going to get married. And so, he had never lived with us or anything like that. And my mom said, you know what, because we're kind of starting a new life together, we're going to go somewhere new and, start a whole new thing together. So all of us we got to pick a state and we put it in a hat. And I got to pull out one of the pieces of paper, and we pulled out Virginia, and we got in a U-Haul, and we moved from LA to Virginia. On the way, we picked up my brother, who hadn't been living with me. And then on the rest of the way, we picked up my stepsister, who I had never even met before. And all because I pulled Virginia out of a hat. I don't even remember who put Virginia in the hat. We went from LA, where it was just my mom and me, and I was really the only child. I had my brother, but he wasn't living with us, all the way to Virginia, where I became the youngest of 3 with a new dad. But it was presented in this fun way, like that we got to, pick up family as we went, and we got to go and explore these places, and we made it a whole week-long road trip. And, and so they made it this fun thing. So yeah, we literally moved cross country, and I picked up a whole new family because we pulled Virginia out of a hat.
Wow. What was the state that you put in?
I don't know. I was 8. I can't, I don't, obviously, I can't even remember where else we sat. I'd have to ask my mom.
Yeah. I love the element of one, the participation and engagement, and then the surprise on the other side. So that anticipation of all of that into that one moment and experience of here's where we're shifting to.
Yeah, I think I do appreciate my parents. Oh, and I want to do this with my children, is contribution was always very valued. You know, it wasn't just about participation. It wasn't just about existing, and it wasn't just about obeying. It was about contribution. I have a very creator-oriented, MacGyver-esque family. And that's always been really important. Contribution is really, really important. Like, existing isn't what matters. It's contribution. Having good ideas and participating in the family was always really, really valued and rewarded. And that, I think that has been really helpful too from a business perspective, because I feel that way about other people. I have a very collaborative team. My team always tells me that they truly feel like they are a part of something, that they don't just work for me, that they're a part of something because I want to hear their opinions. I think my opinions, you know, my outcomes become better when I have everybody else's opinions that we can all work off of, because sometimes I have an okay idea, but it sparks somebody else's amazing idea. And I don't want to just sit around and get pat on the back for my okay ideas. I want to have awesome ideas.
Yeah. And speaking of team, what does your business team look like? And then also your home support team look like?
Yeah. So from a business perspective, I have Amy is my operations director. And I also call her basically like my thought jogger or my brain activator. Kind of depends on what term I want to use for that week. But I'm a speak to think person, a true extrovert, which means I talk things out. I don't write things out. I talk them out. And I have a whiteboard literally in my living room. And so she not only manages operations and everything, but her and I have a weekly call just to talk out ideas and thoughts and figure things out. And then she helps delegate. So she's amazing. And she helps with hiring. She's sort of HR, operations, all that kind of stuff. So she's my right-hand person. Then I have Sam, and Sam does all of we call her my Girl Friday, because she does all my tech and all of sort of the branding, so she built our membership site and does our website and all that kind of stuff. Jen does all of my Entreport, which is our email sales funnel stuff. So she makes sure that the things that we send out go to the right people for the right reasons, and manages that whole process, which is amazing. So promotion and deliverability and everything. Marilyn is my community manager, and none of these ladies are full-time, by the way. One of my goals as a business was to never have a full-time employee and never have an office. I like being mobile. I like being a little sort of entrepreneur nomad, even if it is just local. And that's really important to me. So all of these girls vary from 20 hours a week to 5 hours a week. But that's about it. And what's great is they all have families. So they either have other clients or they only want to work that much. So Marilyn's my community manager. She helps keep her pulse in the Facebook group, which is amazing because we're 40,000 women now. She helps me understand what's happening, what's the conversations, because I can't run the business and be in there hours a day. I can only be in there, say, 20 minutes a day. And she helps me really still feel very connected and interact in a way that is very connected. So she does that. She helps with our local meetup groups and our hosts there. She helps with our sort of communities in the paid space. And then she manages all of our fulfillment because her other business is doing fulfillment. So she sends out our academy boxes and our mailers and things, everything that deals with really customer experience and community management. That's what she manages. I have so many M's in my team. So there's Marilyn. Melissa helps me translate my content. So when I say, hey, I've got this, we're going to make this course, or I need to make a worksheet, or I have a concept that I need to draw out, she's the one that helps translate what I'm doing into a process or into a course or into a workbook. So she's my content translator, which is amazing. She does all of our technical content. And then Mallory does all of my content. I do a lot of my content writing, but she does a lot of our social posts and all of our emails that aren't I call them permission emails, which are just really like from my heart. So I write all of those, but she'll write ones that say we have podcasts and training and different things like that. And writes our sales pages and stuff. So she does those. And then I have an executive VA, Janet, who's awesome. And she lets people in the groups and kicks them out of the groups. And she manages my email, manages me getting pitches me to get on podcasts, manages the people that pitch to get on our podcast. So some of those admin components. And then I have, an accountant on retainer and a lawyer on retainer. And I think that, wow, when I say that out loud, that's a lot of people.
It's what it takes to run a business and a family, though, that we need to outsource, right? Like if it's not our zone of genius, as in the book, The Big Leap, right? Zone of excellence, we can have someone who can do it better, faster, and actually enjoy that process. And I love that you've made a decision to have part-time. With Simple Green Smoothies, everyone was part-time, 20 hours, like 5 to 20 hours a week as well. And you can get so much done when everyone is in their lane doing their thing.
Yeah, I think one of the big mistakes people make is they try to find the one person. And I feel that same way when you talk about family support with daycare. I sent my kids to school, to daycare really early, and never had a sort of nanny or consistent babysitter, partially because I didn't want, if my babysitter was sick, then all of a sudden I have nobody to watch them, versus if one of the teachers is sick at their school, they've sort of, leveraged across multiple people, the risk. And so they can still go to school. They just replace that teacher with somebody or do something else. And so I didn't want to be beholden to one person from a child's, supporting kind of way. And I also felt that way about my team, which is if I had one person doing everything, then if that person wanted to go on vacation, all of a sudden I'm the only one in my business again. And I was like, diversify. That's the word I'm looking for. I wanted to I was like, what word am I looking for? Diversify, like really like across the board. And we have in our team that if we know that if this particular role goes on vacation, we know exactly who picks up that slack, and that they know ahead of time and what all those things look like, because people have lives, especially boss moms. I always say that your business has to be simple because your life is complex. Like our kids get sick, things happen. And as our parents get older, they need us more. And, we get sick and or you just wake up one morning and you're like, I'm just not mentally there. Like I'm just emotional today. I have no logical reason why, but nothing anybody says is funny. And I just want to cry and I just want to watch rom-coms and, think about how the whole world is on my shoulders. And you're going to get nothing done. And so we all need to recognize that we're human beings trying to do things, and it's not always going to go the way we planned. And so I want to build a business that when that happens, it doesn't all fall on me, and therefore running my business becomes some massive burden instead of a joy. And I feel that way about raising kids too. Like our kids can often feel burdensome, not because they mean to, but because they're human beings that we have to make sure live. And so how can we create a support system where like everything can kind of be accounted for so that we feel joy even when things don't go the way we planned?
Yes. And I know on your website, you say we believe that part of our job as parents is to show our kids what a good life lived looks like. And I'm curious, how do your kids describe what it is that you do?
Well, they definitely know I run Boss Mom. They love to say Boss Mom all the time. I get like things from school where the teacher fills out like what the kid says, and it's like, what does mommy do? And it just says, mommy does Boss Mom. And I'm like, okay. And my kids are 4 and 6. So it's, they're still learning, but they know that I help people. So when they go to school, I want to make sure that work is never a negative word for my kids. And so if they go to school and they're asking like, oh, can we stay home? And I'm like, mom has to work. So you don't get to stay home. You've got to go to school. You go to school, mom goes to work. And when they ask questions, I tell them, you go to school to learn how to be helpful. Right. And I go to work to be helpful. So you're learning how to be helpful so that when you get older, you can actually be helpful. You can solve problems and you can help people. Like that's what we do for work. And so they know that mom helps people. They know that mom does things on stage and with a microphone. They've been to my events. They've helped me record podcasts. So they know that I am, have a community and have people that, and connection. I don't think they know that I do content strategy or that I, help people build sales funnels or things like that. But from a fundamental level, I think my kids understanding that what I'm doing is helpful to other people and that I'm solving problems, like those are the two things that I think are most important to me.
I love that. And also just being that model for your children that work isn't a negative thing. I think that's really powerful. My daughter will see me on my laptop and she's like, "You're making that face again." It's like, and you like squint your eyes and you're like really focused. I'm like, "That's my making money face." And just letting her know, but also that when I say I'm working, I also I love what I do. Just saying that, it's like the words that we use to attach with how we model and express what we're doing in the world, I think is an important piece for them to see, because we can tell them what we do, but if we actually show them, I think that really inspires and activates them to really understand the dynamics. And I love that you talk about problem solving and helping people, and it links back to that value of that we're here to contribute.
Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned is the money, like I'm making money. That's something that's really important to me because I don't feel like that's necessarily instilled a lot. And I don't feel like that was necessarily instilled in me a lot, which is things to like the value of things and money. So my kids will go, "Mom, we want to go to Chuck E. Cheese, or we want to do this thing, or we want to go to the movies or buy a something or other." And sometimes I just flat out say, "No, you don't need that. There's no reason for it." But sometimes I say, "Okay, well, we have a choice because mommy makes money by doing work and you want this thing that costs money. So we have a choice. Either we get up on Saturday morning, but mom is going to work for 3 hours and you guys have to play with yourself. But then later we can all go to the movies together, which costs money. Or if you want to play with mom all day on Saturday, then we can't go because work, equates to money. And so if I'm not going to have space to earn that, then we're not going to be able to afford that." And so we consciously make the choice together, and they'll go, "No, we really want to go to the movie. So we'll play a game. We'll figure it out like you do on Saturday." And they really do. It's interesting because they really do make that choice. They'll decide what they want to fight for and what they're willing to give up for it, versus, the idea that they just can or can't have it based on what I dictate. And so I really like that because I want my kids to understand what decision-making looks like and what is important to them, because I think a lot of times we just have stuff. And even as adults, we just have stuff and we're never really challenged to say what's important. Like I really love someone asked me one time, "If your house is on fire and you had 30 seconds, what would you take?" And I constantly I look in my house like once a month and I'm like, what would I take? And is it anything that's out that I can see? Is it like what actually matters to me? And when I really think about it, there's very little here that matters to me that's stuff that I couldn't replace. There's one or two pictures that I've looked at and I'm like, "Oh, that memory, I look at that picture all the time and I'd be really sad if that memory was gone." Or that one thing that but it all really comes back to people and relationships. So I like to equate that, not just, you can't do this if you do this when it comes to stuff. I like to make their choices about how they spend time with me and with family and things like that so that they can understand money, not just in exchange of thing, but as a choice of how we spend our time and who we spend our time with.
I love that. And them getting to learn about, making intentional trade-offs. And I know my husband took my daughter to the bookstore yesterday and he's like, "I will buy one book. If you want to buy more, then, you spend your own money." And she made different choices than she would if it was the endless parent fund of, "Okay, wait, I need to look at the prices of what this costs or what that costs." So just giving them some context around money, around time, I think is so important. And is there a way that, I'm curious about your mindset around money, what you grew up with, because you were saying that wasn't really a thing that was talked about. And then how have you shifted your mindset around making money as a boss mom?
Yeah. Okay. So the funny thing is we didn't do a lot of talking about money, managing it and those kinds of things. But I was super lucky because my stepdad is a serial entrepreneur. And he had that just abundance, massive abundance, right? So one of the things that is good that I grew up with was there's always money. somebody's got like a Grant Cardone mentality. I'm not necessarily a huge follower of Grant Cardone, but one of the things that he says that I really do believe with, he's like, money is currency. It is meant to flow. It is meant to move. That is what money is meant for. It is not meant to stay stagnant. That's why it's called currency. And, so he's like, I walk into a room and it's like, who wants my money and who's got my money? Like, that's the phrase he says. And I think that's how I didn't realize it, but I was brought up with, where my stepdad said, there is money. There's an abundance of money. If you understand where it is and what people want and what the necessary value trade is, then you understand that money is simply a bartering tool for everybody to win. So I was never brought up feeling like if somebody was paying me that I felt bad about it, or if I was paying somebody I felt bad about it, or that money was equated to my, intrinsic internal value. It was simply a form of currency that we use, that we say, this is valuable to me in a way that equals this amount, and what you have is valuable to you, and we're going to make a trade. And because of that, I got really lucky that I just wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, let's make some money. And if I don't make it, it doesn't mean I'm not a good person or I'm not smart or I'm not capable. It just means whatever value I put out there wasn't either positioned in the right way or wasn't as valuable or as much of a priority as somebody else put out there. And something else doesn't have to be my competitor. It might be, that pair of heels that somebody wanted, or putting their kids, piano lessons, or everybody going on a vacation. And so I look at it and go, okay, well, I got to do a better job. I obviously didn't position it correctly, and I just keep going and I keep going. So that resilience of moving around all the time comes into play really nicely. And my belief system that there's an abundance of money, like there's a crap ton of money out there in the world, and we just have to understand how it flows and how people make their decisions on how it flows. And when we don't do it right, recognize that that's not some ping to our personal value. It just means we didn't position it right, and we got to keep going until we do.
Speaking of currency, and I love that idea of flow, I want to talk about the currency of community, because you talked about having a Facebook community of over 40,000 members inside that group. And I'm curious, what are things that you have done really well in terms of building your Boss Mom community, and some things that you've tried that maybe were some oops, not so great moments in building community online?
Yeah, sure. So, and I speak on this. So I do like social media marketing world, talk about sustainable community. I've got a keynote in Maine at the Agents of Change, getting to talk about how you create sustainable community. I'm actually doing a co-facilitated, it's awesome because it's this kind of closed group that's a co-facilitating with Mark Schaefer and this 30 people who are either entrepreneurs or the head of marketing for large companies. And we're really taking 3 days to reinvent what the new world of marketing when it comes to community and loyalty and sort of that grassroots community, how that flows and works for companies, which is super exciting. So this is like one of my favorite things to talk about, because we used to grow up next to our families. We used to grow up next to our friends. We used to never move. And so we had this amazing physical support system, and we just don't have that anymore. And one would argue that even when we had that, it wasn't necessarily always the circle of understanding, right? But now we've got these Facebook groups where people are self-selecting, right, into spaces based on exactly what they love to do. You know what I mean? You can go and find the exact, group of people that love to do marathons. You can find the exact group of people, that love to knit. You can find the exact group of people that care about one particular kind of charity or activity or thing. And it's a really cool new world, in my opinion. I mean, I think Facebook and other places kind of get a bad rap for those that have business, that they don't care about us. But I'm really excited about all of the opportunities and spaces they've created for us when we're using it in the right way. For us and Boss Mom, we believe that there are two things that create community, and therefore loyalty and community, because I think loyalty and community are really important. And I can say that and why in a second. But the two things is that people need to feel valued and they need to feel protected. I think at the most basic level, in order for a community to work, people need to feel valued and they need to feel protected, which means they need to feel like they can speak up and say things, whether that is contributing to the community or telling you something's wrong or giving feedback. Those all have to be spaces where they feel good enough that they can do that, that you care about what they're saying, and that they're not going to get hurt by saying it, right? And then they have to feel protected by the boundaries that you set, right? So I tell people when they're building online communities, one of the things that I think we did really well, just like the way you would discipline your kids, is we created boundaries and then we protected them fiercely, right? If somebody does not come to our group, they come with malicious intent, or they don't even come with malicious intent, they just come with apathy to our rules and what we do, they get kicked out. We've kicked out close to, I think, 15 to 1,000 people over the last 4 years in our group. Because you don't get to stay. This is not a place where I don't care how many people are in this group. I don't need a number to make me feel special. I need real human beings that are trying to connect in a way that is valuable and impactful to us and to the people we're around and to the rest of the world. And I will protect that fiercely. And I think that's one of the things that we did right that a lot of people do wrong is they're either lax about their rules or they feel bad because they don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. But the people that know they're protected by the people who run the group, then they are much more open. They're much more connected. They're much more loyal. And that's really important. And the other element that allows us to make people feel valued and make people feel safe is that we also allow the natural formation of roles within the group. They're going to be natural set of people who want to police the group. They're the people that tell us when somebody's doing something wrong, right? And we celebrate those people. We don't necessarily say out loud, thanks to this person for turning everybody in, obviously. But it's important. If there's somebody that their sort of love language is that feeling of contribution that they're making, is that they're letting us know that somebody did something wrong, good, because I don't always catch all of those things, right? And if we don't catch those things, then all of a sudden everybody starts posting the stuff that doesn't work or that makes somebody feel bad or is sexist or racist or all of those things. Because even when people don't mean to, we're using, written word and we've got 40,000 people. There's no possible way to not hurt somebody's feelings with what you say, even when you don't mean it, because everybody brings their baggage to the group, right? Everybody brings their baggage to every conversation you have, every friendship you have, every relationship you have. We've all got baggage. We're all bringing it with us. And half the time we don't even know that it's hanging there dictating, how we interact and react with things. So you've got your policers, you've got your natural connectors, the people that naturally say, oh, you know who you need? You need so-and-so. And they're constantly tagging people. Those people are amazing. We have our trainers, the people that naturally go in and spend time answering questions and being helpful. You have your sort of cry on your shoulder, people that naturally just go in. And when they see a post of somebody having a hard day, they naturally just tell that person it's going to be okay. And they're really positive and supportive. And so we really cultivate all of those roles as opposed to try and dictate what, the group is and bear all of that weight on our shoulders. We allow the group to naturally assume their roles within the space and to create a community ladder where you can actually move up into how you're seen in the community. We have women who have built entire 6-figure businesses solely on business from Boss Mom because they've become micro famous in that space because they've climbed the community ladder. And we like it. It's Boss Mom is an ecosystem. Everything else on Facebook could shut off except for Boss Mom, and the women within there could all run 6-figure businesses just by hiring each other.
I love that. And what would be some things that you have tried or a moment where you tried something that it didn't work so great?
Yeah, well, I definitely think there has been times when we have tried to promote certain things and it just didn't work because we didn't give enough time to nurture, which, now we've learned our lessons about how people, even when they're loyal to the community, does not mean they know who I am. I've had times where the community's been thriving, but I stepped out for any particular reason and really didn't engage. And then when I came back in, we realized that there were things we hadn't put in place so that people knew who I was and cared. So I think those are the main things from a business perspective. From a community perspective, we're really conscious about the way we run the group. And so I don't think we've made as many big mistakes as we could because the group has always been something that's been very important to me and how we deal with it. We have a whole Voxer channel just for community where we all make decisions about things to delete. And I've gotten hate mail from people where, something will happen in the news and somebody will post something about their view. And we don't let religion or politics into the group. And we'll delete a post where they have a valid opinion, but that valid opinion is meant for somewhere else, not for here. And it's hard to convey to people that I want you to share how you feel about the world, but I have to protect the way we share certain things in this group because the conversation isn't about that. The conversation is about moms and businesses. And so please go share that on your page or in your place or in your group. And I've literally gotten people message me and tell me that I'm stymieing religious freedom and that I hate certain races or do certain things. And I can't change that, and I have to make a decision that when you decide to build something and you're going to protect it for what you want to protect it for, that not everybody's going to like how you do that. And that's part of the burden of leadership. But I wouldn't say that's something that when I think about is negative. I think that there's no way around that. And we've just tried to get better and better and better about how we deal with those situations so that we can realize I want to realize that behind every profile is a human being, and whether that human being is happy or angry or confused or sad or alone, it doesn't matter how they react or interact with me, good or bad, it's still a human being. And I want to always, in everything that we do, get better and better and better at understanding how human beings work and try and be as human as we can in our interactions.
And you mentioned, finding that space to kind of re-engage with the community when you've stepped away or people may have forgotten who you were. How did you, because I think this is a typical thing that can happen for people. And sometimes they'll just close a group down or restart another one. But what was the process that you took to re-engage with the community and also letting them know who you are and what you have to offer, and kind of balancing that you do have things to sell and to offer, as well as building and nurturing a community?
Yeah. So if we feel like there's an ebb and flow, and if we feel like there's an ebb in people really knowing me, so like my dad passed away last year. So it was time when I was out and not around. So when coming back in and I'm really going to engage, what we would do is I'm the only one that can go live in the group. And to me, that's really important because I pay about $1,000 a month at this point to manage that group, to really make sure that community stays the way it should. And so I'm the only one that gets to go live, which is really helpful. So if we need to reestablish myself, we'll usually do a 30 days where I go live every day. If I really need to establish myself. Otherwise, we'll do live every week, and we'll decide from a content standpoint what it is I need to reestablish. Because sometimes it's not that they don't know me, it's just they don't know I do a certain thing. Or for instance, if, there's a lot of people in my group that will get excited about B School. And so leading up to B School, I will do a lot of lives and say, hey, here's how to know if that's a good fit for you. And here are other people in the group or with Boss Mom that, are also do certain things to consider. So I'll help them make decisions when things come up. If, we'll have something where a big launch is happening for membership sites and we'll get a ton of questions about that. And I know there's a lot of attention diverted towards another brand. We'll actually do lives in our group where I help them make a decision about whether or not that particular thing that's very popular is a good choice for them. And that really helps establish my authority in that space because it's not just me telling them buy my stuff. It's me helping them make decisions about whether the thing that's in every single ad that they see everywhere is the right decision for them. So that really helps build authority. And then recently, we actually just started using units in our Facebook group, which is a kind of coursework that you can do. It's been around for a while. We haven't leveraged it all that much, but we've really started doing it where we have an entire unit all on because the group is big enough. There's a welcome to what the Boss Mom brand is about. It tells them everything they can post. It tells them what they can't post. And it tells them all about my 3 books and just establishes that in that space. And then we have a whole unit on free resources, and we have a whole unit on paid resources, and then we have a whole unit on all the things I recommend that they have, that are my affiliate programs. And so in that way, and then we are starting to, it's relatively new, but we're starting to actually reward people. So every month we look at people who have finished the units, and then we pick one name and we send them a present. for being a great community member. Yeah. So that you could do a live challenge to get everybody riled up. You can do, we've done it where we've done sort of, I think lives and challenges and things like that are the best way to reestablish yourself in the group quickly. But we've also had it where we'll start to ramp up telling people, testimonials and social proof and things like that of things we've done, or we'll infuse more training from me or something like that. But usually if you need to get yourself back into the space, show them that you are a connector, that you're smart, that they understand what it is you do, and that you actually care about them as a human being, not just that they go and buy your stuff.
Yes, I love that you focus on abundance versus scarcity too. And okay, this is the conversation that's live for them that isn't about our offer. And I also love the surprise and delight of surprising a member who finishes a unit, and that you're using the units almost like a interactive navigation bar in a way, right? The things that you would have featured on your homepage or that you would have in your Instagram highlight stories, just leveraging that in a way where it's helpful, valuable, but also lets people know what you do, who you help, and how you help them. I think that's genius.
Yeah. And always remember that personal touch is key. Like no matter how big your business gets, personal touch is always important. So we have triggers where I use Trello, but you could have it where it triggers an email to you, but it gives me this list on the left-hand side when people buy certain things. So they may, we have our membership, but you can buy at one particular day, we give you the opportunity to get the annual membership, like the annual pass for half off. And when anybody does that, not just the monthly membership, but they decide to go in for the year, I get a ping and I literally send them a video and thank them because they've just given me trust for a year. They trust me enough that they want me to be a part of their business journey for a whole year. That's a big deal to me. When we have our virtual workshops and same thing where it's like, hey, you can buy one for the next one coming up. Or if you want to buy all 4 quarters, you get one free. And the people that do that, even though, yes, they're getting a deal by doing it, they're trusting me for a year. They're saying, I believe enough in your ability to help me and solve my problem that I need to solve for that particular thing, that I'm going to trust you for the next year ahead of time. And to me, that's really important that they understand that I don't just see that as a sale, that I see that as a human being that just put their trust in me to be a part of their business journey for an extended period of time. And that's a big deal. And so each of those people, I actually send a personal little Loom video thanking them for the investment they've just made in me and in them and that trust so that they know. And it just builds that real understanding that I know they're a human being, that I don't just look at revenue and go, ooh, yay, I made more money today. But I look at it and go, a human being just made a decision that what I'm doing is valuable enough to create that currency, to move that money over so that I can give them a result. And I take that very seriously.
Yes, that's totally leading with love. Mm-hmm. I'd love to talk about mom guilt. And if you ever had it as you have grown a business and a family at the same time, and how you've moved through it. Because I think that's a big topic for a lot of moms of, I don't want to stay at home 24/7, but I also have a business and a dream and a vision, and just how to kind of navigate those worlds.
Yeah. Of course I have guilt. I mean, I started Boss Mom because of it. I think I have a lot less now. And the reason why is because I believe that we feel guilt when we don't know if we made the right decision, right? Guilt trickles in when we go, oh, I might have not made the right choice. And so the goal then becomes not to not feel guilty, but to feel confident about our decisions. And when we shift that perspective, we give ourselves a lot more power, right? A lot more conscious ability to manage it. And I think that one shift can be really helpful for everybody, because you can't say, well, I'm just going to try to not be guilty anymore. That's like trying to say, like, I'm always going to be happy, or I'm never going to get my period, or whatever those things are. Like, you're going to be a hot mess once in a while. You're just not going to be able to help it. And you're going to feel guilty, every once in a while. So then it goes, if we flip it and we say, then how can I really be conscious about my decisions? How can I create a system for myself where I feel good about the choices I'm making so that I don't feel guilty about that time when my business trumped my family for that particular day or that particular thing, right? Or that my family trumped my business, or, that everything, that myself trumped everything. And so what I do is we do every quarter, and then we do every month, and then we do every week. And I do this every day, where we're constantly reevaluating our priorities, what's most important and what we actually want, so that I can say, okay, I want to, we have our sort of deal breakers and our dream makers. I want to, speak on stage. But when my daughter was born, I didn't want to be away for more than 2 days at a time. So that helps me make a decision that if somebody comes to me and says, I want you to speak over here, and it's, over on the other side of the country, and you're going to be gone for 4 days, I would look at what my priorities are and I'd say, nope, one of my priorities is to not be away from my daughter for more than 2 days. And then I would look at it and I say, is this opportunity something that I think is so incredibly huge that it would trump my decision to not be away for more than 2 days? And if the answer was no, then I could easily and confidently without guilt go and say, no, I don't need to speak there. Or I've consciously made the decision that yes, this is valuable enough that I'm willing to be away for a few days. And then I don't feel guilty because I've gone through that process of what was important to me. What do I really want to cultivate and care about? And, and it helped me make decisions. So I think if we can do that, even down to what we feed our kids and, what our routines are and where we spend our time and our money and all of those things, then we just have a lot less guilt.
Yeah. I love that you've created this decision tree to really evaluate your priorities, because I've said no to speaking in like Bali. I'm like, doesn't align with the parameters that I've created. And I think that's really important for people to see that. So I appreciate you just really displaying that. And one piece that I would love to cover before, we start to close up is you started the Boss Mom movement with the Boss Mom book, The Ultimate Guide to Raising a Business and Nurturing Your Family Like a Pro. But you have a newer book, Climb Your Own Ladder, Become the CEO of Your Own Business.
Yeah. So I basically wrote it's technically my third book, but I wrote Climb Your Own Ladder because I see women all the time that are beating themselves up that they started their business 6 months ago and they're not making $1 million and they're not the expert in their space. And I equate the fact to, if you started as an intern at an internship at a company, 6 months later, if you weren't the CEO, you wouldn't be crying. People build 20-year career plans. And so I wanted to show people what are the phases of business that you're going to go through, the intern, the janitor, the operations manager, all the way to the visionary and CEO, and what that looks like, what you should be doing, and how you know when it's right to move to the next level, so that people could just stop feeling so bad about themselves that they haven't gone far enough. When you're like, no. You're at this place 6 months or a year in. That's amazing. Like that's legit amazing. The government says that if you just have to be profitable within 5 years and you started making money at 6 months, I think you should pat yourself on the back for that. So the third book was all about a really simple, it's like an hour read. It's a clean, easy book. You get through and you can be like, I know where I am in my business. I know that I'm in the right place. I know that I'm getting close to moving the next step, and I know what to do, how to move there. And it just takes away that guilt and that feeling, that pain that we put on ourselves that maybe we're not moving fast enough or we're not good enough, because that's rarely the case.
Right. And how would you compare your writing process from the first 2 books to the most recent one?
I'm a journalism major, so I'm a pretty fast writer. I tend to buckle down, write the whole thing in 2 weeks, and then take 2 or 3 months in the editing process and the back end and really honing in on it. So the writing has been really easy for me, but I will say I've just become a better writer, and I know myself that I need other people. So I constantly have, the brain activators in my life, so that otherwise I will just sit and stare at a blank screen. But once I have those activators, I'm on it. I go, I dig in. Everything else has to stop, and I'm just in it for a couple weeks. And then I can start doing all the other things again in my business, but now allowing the editing process to manage some of the time. That's really what's worked best for me.
I think everyone wants to just borrow Dana's book writing brain. I would just like to go all in. So as we wrap up, I am just curious, what is your vision, being the visionary, being the CEO, being that boss mom that you are moving towards next?
We are actually in the process of really coming out with what we're calling the Boss Mom method. It's not necessarily a new product or anything like that, but it is a very specific way that we believe moms should run and grow their businesses to leverage the aspect of our being a mom and the choices we've made and the raising a family and the way that we want that to be, so that we aren't measuring ourselves based on the 20-year-old that has no kids, that just hustles 12 hours a day. And why aren't we where they are? But it's showing people the exact way we believe you should build a business, so that you have consistency in your business and sustainability in your business, so that when life comes your way and happens without us, expecting it, that, like I said, our businesses don't feel like a burden. They feel like a resource.
I just love your perspective, your wisdom, and how you are integrating the two of motherhood and business. And is there anything else that you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
No, just that, make sure you connect with the people around you. Like, community is so massively important. Don't hide the things that are hard because they just stop you from moving forward. Make sure you're talking to the people around you and sharing with whatever inner circle you want to have, because it really does help to have that community and support.
Amazing, amazing. Go to boss-mom.com and I will link to everything in the show notes, especially your 3 books. Also, please go listen to the podcast, and I so appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right, bye. Thank you so much for your heart and attention and listening to Lead with Love. You can always get the links and resources mentioned in each episode over at leadwithlovepodcast.com, so that you can build a sustainable business and live a creative life on your terms. If this message, Leading with Love, resonates with you and you want to take a stand for remembering that there are humans with beating hearts behind the numbers, I would love for you to subscribe so you never miss an episode and leave an honest review. It would mean the world to me, and it also helps more people spread more love in the world, which we really, really need. I also love hearing from you. So as you're listening, take a screenshot, share your favorite takeaway, and tag me on Instagram and Facebook at Jada Selner. I really appreciate you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.